Okay, blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Testing, testing, testing. 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 Poha. Looks good. Excuse me. All right. Just got to get Dr. Mike here on the line. Open these now so they're not disruptive later. Okay, got my questions pulled up. Jesus, that's a lot. It's a good thing. Oh boy. Aunt Simon's already on the live thread. My goodness. My goodness. Let's see. Turn it this way. Oh boy, 14 pages. Alrighty. Man, some of these RP transformation ones are crazy. Okay, just waiting for Dr. Mike. We can rock and roll. Oh boy, those are some fat kitties. Okay. That's good. Questions good. That's good. Ooh. All right. Where's he at? Where's Dr. Mike? Let's get the party started. Desk is too cluttered. It's driving me nuts. So we're getting close. I see his avatar screen. There he is.
Sorry about that. My internet is taking its sweet time.
Oh, I see you're home. This is great.
Yeah, the positive turn. Tentatively positive turn events.
All right. Well, we can chat about that after. Hey, your sound is really hard to hear. You got the mic on at all or no?
Testing.
Ah, so much better.
Okay, cool. Let me
All
know if
right.
it gets funky at all.
No, yeah, you're golden now. You run a rock and roll. We got another hefty list this week. People are dishing it out.
Boy, oh boy. Yeah, sure. My computer is loading the questions. I'm in Microsoft, Windows 3.1 or whatever, apparently.
Oh yeah,
Those kinds of speed.
Windows Millennium Edition speeds.
Oh, now that's fast. Windows. I remember 95 was a really good platform, and the basic outline of 95 wasn't really changed until Windows 7 or whatever.
Yeah, it was like every other year too, where they would 95 was solid, ME sucked dick, and then it was XP was all right, basically a fancy, a nicer looking version of 95, and then Vista was just trash, nothing worked.
Exactly.
And then 7, people were all butthurt when 7 came out because it had the quasi tablet thing, and people were well, but you could just use it not in that mode, and people were still mad about it. I was like, just switch it to the other mode. Who cares?
Yep. And people don't like to do that.
Yeah.
Give me one sec. I just sent you an email, James. Can you check super quick?
Sure. Which email did you send it to? Personal or the RP one?
RP. And you don't have to reply to me. Just tell me a yes or no on here.
Yes. Sorry. I was confirming that I got it. Sorry. Yeah. Yep. On all.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Great. All right. So from America's high school, Scott Sanchez. Another question on nutrition in the workout window. What's your feeling on using sugary but low-fat breakfast cereal for my post-workout carbs? Lucky Charms, Frosted Flakes, etc. My post-workout meal usually looks like 40p, 50c, 5 fat, with at least 25 carbs and often all 50 coming from a sugary cereal. But I get hate from people saying I eat sugary cereal after my workout, which doesn't make sense for me because I feel like cereal is maybe the most perfect post-workout carb source on the planet. It's tasty, cheap. The carbs kick in fast, and who the hell wants to eat 50 grams of carbs from oatmeal every day after a hard workout? Am I crazy? What says you? What says us, Scott Sanchez, is about 5 years ago we got on the cereal kick and we never got off. So 110%.
Yeah, I think it's great during mass and maintenance. Maybe not the best choice during cut when those macros get
then
low.
You will want the oatmeal.
Yeah, but other than that, yeah, totally, absolutely.
All right. Ibrahim Masangare says, hi, guys. I just wanted to get clarification about the use of downsets for an exercise. I think I might have missed a little bit about how to use them based on the past few webinars. A few months back, I asked the question about when to use downsets, and what I got was the following. You have a certain rep range, 5 to 10. You should use straight sets until you exit the rep range, at which point you would drop the weight to do downsets. However, based on the last 2 to 4 webinars, I think you guys have expanded a bit more on when to do the last downsets, and there might have been more to it than what I just said, including the higher rep ranges. The 5 to 10 rep range seems the easiest to use downsets, but for the 10 to 20 or 10 to 15 range, for example, would you drop the weight once the reps go below 10, or would you keep the weight till reps go below 5 and use the rep range for the first set of the exercise, as you mentioned in the past, if I remember correctly? Your help would be appreciated because I got a little bit confused on this one. So first of all, just a couple things. One, it doesn't really matter much, because as long as you put in the volume and the intensity averages, it doesn't matter much how you get there. Downsets are, and James, please follow up for me, correcting me if I'm wrong. Downsets are just another tool to get the work in, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so downsets, primarily their function is to make sure you don't get into an inefficient volume range of less than 5 reps per set. You just have to do more volume, but less than 5 reps per set is just not an efficient way to add volume. So generally speaking, it's the primary downset. The rule number 1 of downsets is like at least 5 reps per set. Otherwise, take downsets because of the efficiency loss. Now, the more advanced way to use downsets, which is still nonetheless true, is, if you're doing real particular rep range training, which is not always the same thing as loading range training. This is way more advanced. Okay, most rep range training, like the 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 5 to 10 range, those are really proxies for loading ranges. That's how most of the physiology works. Sometimes you can use rep ranges for a couple of reasons. One, even at relatively light weights, there's not as much of a metabolite effect from lower reps, even if you're tired. Sometimes the higher reps just do metabolites better, even if they're way adjusted. Another one is mind-muscle connection. Like if you're doing sets of 5, it might just not be enough reps to really feel the weight out. So if you're doing an exercise that requires a lot of focus and mind-muscle connection, you might want to do more reps, like 10 to 15, to get that accomplished. So sometimes, even though your loading range is a check, like it's still in the loading range you want, but the reps are lower because you're tired, sometimes you want higher reps just to get those other effects. That's not very common. So usually what we say is downsets, rule number 1, are necessary when you get below 5 reps per set. Rule number 2 is an optional rule. Okay, rule number 1 is not. Rule number 2 is an optional rule that says sometimes you want to stay in your rep range to accomplish some of those. Now, that's not loading based anymore. It's not the strict rep range. It's a rep range for metabolite effect or for mind-muscle connection, so on and so forth. Then you can use it when you get to the bottom of your rep range. Like if you're 10 to 15 is the target range, as soon as you get below 10, you can bump the weight to get back to 15 or 12 or whatever. But that second rule is not a very strict rule. So be careful using it. It's definitely the opposite of dogmatic. It's just like you can use it and it can be effective, but it can also be taken too far. So for example, if you really want to stay in the 10 to 20 rep range, or even worse in the 20 to 30 rep range, that eventually can make you make so many downset drops that you're training way too light for anything to be accomplished. So one of the reasons that we say it's okay to let your reps degrade all the way to 5, it keeps that loading range, but you never go super lighter, right? But you can stay within a good loading range, especially if you're like in the 10 to 20 range. You can recycle back into the 15 rep range just to accomplish those rep efforts. But that's rule number 2. So always use rule number 1, 5 or more. Rule number 2, you can use, but most of the time you won't have to. James?
Really great. The only thing I would add is just like maybe a slight practical component too, where like if you're working with beginners, sometimes like the first thing that you suggested, Sega, where if you just go below a certain rep threshold at all, so if you're saying 5 to 10, with beginners, it's good to just cut them off when they go below 5 at that point, right? Just because they're not really working in multiple rep ranges to begin with, and you kind of want them to develop a groove for whatever it is that you're doing. Once you get into like the intermediates, you might use something like an average rep range cutoff, and that's kind of where it gets a little easier to manage something like 10 to 20, where you're going to have more drop off in between. And then for your more advanced people, all the things that Mike said are really, really handy. So sometimes there's like a training age thing. Like if you got a beginner, don't get caught up in this stuff. Like you can just use whatever range you're working in. Once you're out of that range, you can use downsets. For intermediates, I think the average is useful, and then you get into more advanced strategies later on.
Yeah, super. Jackson Teller says, "Hi, Mike and James. Just recently joined RP Plus after listening to many of the free podcasts you guys do on YouTube. Love all the content. Super. I was going through the lectures on nutrition for muscle gain, and there was a small bit of info about what happens to someone when they get and stay fat. I was obese/fat for the first 30 years of my life and really fat for the next 20. I'm just kidding. He doesn't.
I decided to step up my game.
Exactly. Fuck this. And started fitness afterwards. Fell in love with it, and it's now my biggest hobby/best therapy ever. Join the club. I started around 110 kilograms with zero muscle. Lost 40 kilograms, and now am now weight training for about, wow. So how far back my computer's processing is, it just told me that I put in a microphone into my jack.
Jesus.
Yeah. Thanks, computer.
Might need to run some maintenance on that bad boy.
Yeah. Fuck. resensitization phase, you feel me?
Exactly.
Okay, so I lost 40 kilograms, so I guess now he's at 70, and I'm now weight training for about 3 years. Sometimes I hear advice on a podcast about why you shouldn't get fat, and everything gets harder afterwards, but there's no specific advice about how to deal with it if that's the case. Every time someone talks about how hard it is to eat enough food, I honestly don't even know how something like that feels. Not saying I'm always hungry, but really full slash stuffed the entire day, that's challenging. Um, do you have any specific advice for former fatties who have all these fat cells going around? Is it more optimal to do a slower bulk? Is there a reason to maybe try mini cuts more often during a bulk, or is it maybe the exact opposite? Does it have any influence on slow or hard cut? Any other advice that might differ compared to people who have never been fat slash obese? Thanks for the advice. So let me reread the last sentence here. Every time someone talks about how hard it is to eat enough food, I honestly don't know how something like that feels. Okay, so he's not struggling with hunger. Am I to understand that correctly, James?
Yes.
Not saying I'm always hungry, but really full slash stuffed the entire day, that's challenging. Okay, so honestly, Jackson, the only input really for people, the only advice for people who used to be relatively overweight is there's always going to be that appetite, social, and physiological ability, proclivity, and desire to gain more weight and eat more food. But you don't seem like you have. And by the way, these are huge averages. A lot of people just don't have that. So you don't seem to have that. So I would say in the very back of your head, know that you're capable of it from a fat cell number and genetics perspective. So don't ever let yourself go off the fucking rails and just forget about basic nutrition altogether. Know that it can be a thing, the regain. But other than that, because you don't struggle with the cravings and stuff, you're fucking good. And there's no mini cut ratios. All this exactly the same for you as it is for anyone else. And it's not a thing. Just kind of know that, like, some people can go and like travel with friends on a road trip and just eat fuck all, like literal fuck all for like a week and come back and weigh gain like 0 pounds, right? You might be in a position where if you really do that, you'll gain like 2 or 3 pounds, and a pound of that will be actual tissue. And you'll be like, shit. So maybe for you, always have a foundation of healthy foods in every day of your life. And then you can have, like, when you're really relaxing, have like 1 or 2 junk food meals every day for like a week, and you'll be good. As long as the rest of the meals are, moderated and really healthy, a lot of veggies, a lot of protein, that sort of thing. That's it, man. James?
Yeah, I think if you're going to go the cutting and massing routes in the future, I would say keep your masses at maybe 10 weeks and cap them off at 10 weeks each time with the maintenance phase and then a full cut to follow. If you find that you're able to stay on track with your mass for 10 weeks and you never feel like you need to go bananas, or you never just, lose your shit and gain like 20 pounds, then you can explore maybe doing some other options like mass mini cut. And then you just become like a normal ass person. So I would say for now, stick with, conservative gain, relatively short mass of like 10 weeks followed by maintenance, and then full cuts to follow. See how that goes and go from there.
Well, actually, so I misread. It said every time someone talks about how it's so hard to eat enough food, I honestly don't even know how something like that feels.
So I think he's
I'm not
saying like
saying
he
I'm
can't
always
relate to
hungry.
people
So
like
he
that.
is easy. It's easy for him to eat. Okay, that makes sense. So if it's easy for you to eat, then James's advice is super, super apt. Ease into the masses. Don't set Napoleonic goals. Like quarter kilo per week for 10 weeks instead of something crazier. But if it's working out, you can get a little bit more lengthy with your masses. I would say that stay on the longer side of masses and the slower side versus the shorter and the faster side. And make sure you take lots of maintenance phases and plenty of cuts to make sure your body fat's not going up. But otherwise, it's all the same stuff. Just know that, like the other advice I gave is just know that if you have the potential to regain, and watch it.
Solid.
All right. Not to be confused with Mel Brooks, Megan Brooks says, "Hi, docs. I've done the female physique template for several years now, and I don't want to gain more muscle mass. I'm looking to move towards maintenance after doing Meso 1 and 2 of the new FBT templates, more than 5 years. While on a cut, I believe maintenance volume is much less than what the FPT escalates to, but I also don't want to lose any muscle. Okay. Do you think I can move towards a 3-day full body split, or should I do something more like push pull leg split? I need to decrease training volume due to amenorrhea as well. Good God. I'm also coming out of a cut and moving towards maintenance, and I'm hoping this will help bring my period back as well. Any other advice dealing with amenorrhea? So neither James and I are qualified to give you that advice. And specifically, generally speaking, eating more food, training less, and getting more sleep is a real good start. Your 3-day full body split is a real good idea. Push-pull legs would not be a good idea. And the low volume, so you say, I believe maintenance volume is much less than what the FPT escalates to, but I also don't want to lose any muscle. As James said in the last webinar, the thing about maintenance volume is twofold. One, it's a lot less volume than you think. Two, it is by definition a volume with which you don't lose muscle. Losing muscle is actually quite difficult via undertraining. As long as you're training some, like a couple of hard working sets per week per body part, you're not going to lose muscle. I wish we were, I'm glad we're not making it up, because it is really that easy. There's a lot of stuff about exercise and eating, especially like making gains and getting exotically lean, that are hard enough as it is. So we'll take the easy shit when it comes. This is an easy thing. So don't worry, you're definitely going to be doing enough muscle, enough maintenance work, enough work to be maintenance on the FPT. And as for dealing with amenorrhea, you have to just give this super, super general advice. I think you're moving in the right direction by training less. I would eat plenty. I would gain body fat. It's just an easy, it doesn't have to be 80%, 2 or 3% body fat gain can improve outcomes. Now, we have no idea why you have amenorrhea. So you have to find out why you have it first, and then work with somebody who's super, super on it.
Yeah, so like Mike said, we're not qualified. So that's some really good general advice. It's really hard to mess up maintenance volume. Like, you're not going to lose muscle, as Mike said, as long as you're doing something. Now, what you do need to go do is talk to either your general or your OBGYN, because if the issue is that it's like just a pure calorie thing, sometimes, and take this with a grain of salt, and this is going to sound a little bit contradictory to what Mike said, and it's not meant to be. I agree with what Mike said, but sometimes if you need to push the calories up higher because you've been just so depleted for so long, sometimes it's good to work out just a little bit more at the same time and not just totally tank your training volume. That way you just don't get fat while you're ramping up your calories. But that would be something you'd want to confirm with your doctors first. That's just a thought.
Yeah. And she said, actually, in the other message, she said, my doctor just advised to decrease exercising as much. All other labs are normal. It sucks because I feel great and don't feel overtrained. Is moving to maintenance volume after a cut the best move? It definitely is.
Yes.
And, as you move to maintenance volume, maybe don't try to gain weight. Just loosen up. You're getting a bit, have a bit more junk food. You'll have a little more fun. Gain a couple pounds, couple of kilos over the course of several weeks, and that'll give you a really good chance, unless you're super lean already, and then your doctor will have to tell you that you have to gain more weight. So, yeah. All right. Matthew Van Schellenbeck.
Love the name.
He's a count. I guarantee he has a castle.
Yes, and he's got like fox hunting dogs and a monocle and a big mustache and like a plaid hat.
God, must have fox hunting dogs. they're dogs that they have like their stable, because they're not like house dogs. They have names, but only like
it's a formality.
It's to refer to them and to tell them what to do. It's not like they're your pet. All right. Hey docs, thanks for the feedback regarding joint pain. My last name used to be spelled von Schellenbeck. Von Schellenbeck, okay, and it is German, but became Van Schellenbeck when my grandfather came over to the States from Germany. All right, makes sense. You mentioned that technique can majorly impact joint stress. Does this mean that the technique is bad? Dr. James gave an example of neutral grip pull-ups, gave him aggravation. Does that mean there's something he could do to make neutral grip pull-ups not give him pain? So in his case, no, because go ahead, James.
Yeah, no. So yes and no. So this is actually a really good question. So it's feasible, right, that maybe I could, in this very specific example, maybe the neutral grip pull-ups is a problem because of the setup that I have in my squat rack. Maybe it's too narrow or too wide or whatever. So it's feasible, right, that maybe if it was wider, I wouldn't have this problem. It's also completely feasible that just because of my anthropometry and the way how strong my lats are relative to how long my arms are, or some combination of those things, that it's just a bad movement for me, and there's nothing I can do at this point, at least in the short term, to change that. So it could be either. I think that's a good question, and it's hard to answer.
So there are 3 tiers that I can think of, at least off the top of my head, of technical analysis and exercise injury aggravation. Tier 1 is the James skeptical tier. When someone tells you this exercise hurts me, tier 1 is you're probably using bad technique. Now, that tier 1 probably occupies about 90% of the distribution for any one person. Like, you're probably looking at somebody tells you squats hurt my knees, tier 1, they're not doing them right. Tier 2 is their general technique is good, but the technique specific to their body is off. So, for example, they're doing squats, but it was generally good technique, but their stance is just too narrow for their frame. And if they widened it just by a little bit, then all of a sudden everything's fine. Or easy curls, they're grabbing outside the easy bar instead of inside, something like that. They're a good example. Tier 2 probably occupies something like another 7%. Okay, so we're up to 97. Tier 3, I would say probably about 3%, is that exercise, any way you cut it, just doesn't fit that person's fucking body. That exists. It totally exists. It's real rare, which is why I give it 3%. So when you look at an analysis of a claim, a person says, this exercise hurts me, there's a probability distribution in 3 tiers. And James, it's pretty right on so far. I can't hear you.
Oh shit! Sorry, did you hear me? No.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Now I can.
Yeah, no, I was saying the idea is brilliant. I think the numbers are always negotiable, of course, but I think the general idea is perfect.
Yeah. So and you can sort of take that to the bank in the sense of, when someone says, "Hey, I can't do this because it hurts," is it possible that they're doing it wrong? Yes, 7% ish, right? Is it possible that they're doing everything right and it's just not for them? Totally. Very unlikely, but possible. And remember, these tiers change based on how advanced and cognizant a lifter is. So if someone like Shimi Hacker or Daniel Jolly or Tony Drotno, then their probability of the technique being wrong is maybe down to like 30, right? And the others are 60 and whatever, respectively, 60 and 10, right? Does that make sense? So, but everyone's susceptible. So just that's a pretty good place to start. So is it possible? Yes. Is it likely that someone is doing it wrong? Yeah, much more likely. But in James's case, like I said, James's general technique is probably not wrong. He's probably in that 7% of specific setup, or in that 3% of just that exercises does not gel with his body. Absolutely. Let me actually jot that down real quick.
Yeah, and the funny, so like one of the implications of that is like, okay, either my lats need to get really, really fucking strong, or I need to change my squat rack setup. Well, guess what? Neither of those two things are happening anytime soon. So for the time being, that exercise is out.
Yep. That's and the thing is, just real quick to add, a lot of people, when you talk to them, they think they are in, everyone thinks they're in tier 3 of this exercise doesn't work for me. Most people are in tier 1, they suck at the technique.
Yeah, absolutely.
It probably makes tier 2 the most accurate self-assess. If someone says, "Hey, I just can't find the technique that works for me," that is probably actually what's going on. But if someone's like, "Yeah, it's just this exercise doesn't work for me," you're like, "Let me see you do it," and then they do it.
You don't work for you, homie.
You're an idiot. You have no idea what you're doing. All right, let's see. Next question. Since I have been training, I haven't really been able to lean bulk properly. So for the past 2 years, I have more or less maintained my muscle mass according to the DEXA. Do you think DEXA scan is a good proxy for judging muscle gain? I never know what the true body fat is. If I am somewhat depleted, my body fat percent is quite a bit higher than if I were carved up, which is the true body fat. Pointless, because there is no true body fat unless someone dissects you. So you got to take the DEXA as it is. DEXA is not that great, but over 2 years, it should be moving up. We have a couple better things. Is the scale moving up and you're not getting fatter? And most importantly, is your rep strength significantly increased over the past 2 years? If it's not, then you're not gaining much muscle. So use those things in conjunction with DEXA, and then you can figure it out.
And for some areas, like your arms, even like a circumference measurement's pretty handy at that point.
Totally.
Like,
yeah.
Okay, if you got 2 inches on your arms, it's probably not all fat.
Right, exactly. Yeah, especially if you weigh just 10 pounds more or something. He says, I usually spend too much time cutting / yo-yo dieting. Finally, to get to 2% on DEXA, then gain 10 pounds in 2 months and have no gains to show for it. I gain LBM. but that just goes away when I cut. In the past, I went from, so you don't want to gain for just 2 months. That's too short. Again, went from my higher volume full body split, probably around 30 sets per week for each muscle group, to something like 16 sets per week. I tried bulking on this and gained around 15 pounds over the course of 4 months, lost LBM on my deck side. I wouldn't worry about that. That doesn't mean anything.
No.
So my thought was that it was not enough volume. Agree, maybe. You got to look at your rep strength. Or am I just gaining too fast to put on an appreciable amount of muscle and the LBM difference is just measurement error? Very likely.
Most likely.
I'd like to get to 200 pounds of 10% body fat, but I consistently have to get down to 190 to be at 10%. I am 75 inches tall. It's an interesting way to display your height. What is that? 6'3"?
6'5", right? Or 6'5", or no.
72.
Fuck, I always screw this. 75 times 12 is 60.
Yeah.
So then,
6'3". Not sure if that's a pipe dream since I am natural. So being natural is one variable that is actually small in the grand scheme. Genetics within naturals determines way more muscle mass than being natural or not. So if you have, good genetics, then yeah, that's easy. If you have bad genetics, then it's impossible. So we're not sure. Thanks, docs. Thinking of switching over to MPT after I finish my cut that I'm on. Don't want to start a new program mid-cut. Good idea.
Good call.
Listen, 2 recommendations for you, and then James probably has a couple. Gain for longer, gain for 4 to 6 months at a time at a slower pace. And for the next 3 years, take about 2 or 3 compound movements that really work well for you, per your last question, and use them in most mesocycles, taking a break every now and again, 1 or 2 mesos here to get away from them and introduce others, and try to become much stronger at them for reps. So I'm talking about take your old 8 RMs and turn them into 15 RMs over the next 3 years. You will gain those 10 pounds of muscle. If you cannot do that, then it is a reflection of the fact that you probably haven't gained that muscle. So give that some thought. James?
Really good. Yeah. And so it sounds like you can get down to 10% pretty consistently. And that seems to be like a real solid thing for you, whether measurement error aside, getting down to 190, 10%. You got that in the bag. So why don't you work on getting a little bit heavier over time? You know what I mean? So sometimes what I'm saying is sometimes people get too caught up on maintaining that low body fat percentage for subsequent massing.
And they never move their settling point up enough.
Exactly. And then they never move anywhere. So just let that go for a while. And like Mike said, take some more time to gain weight. And you might even find yourself gaining a little too much weight at some points, and you might be a little unhappy with that. But you know what? At least you will have definitely gained muscle. Mike and I, although I think if we could do things differently, maybe we would have. But both
maybe only 50% differently, not 100%.
Yeah, not 100% differently. But there have been plenty of times where we were unhappy with our body compositions in the attempt to gain more muscle mass. And sometimes it's just a trade-off, right? Where you just say okay, maybe I'm a hard gainer, or maybe I'm just not sure if I'm gaining. So I got to just push it a little harder and make sure that I am. That's it.
Yep. And how do you know it's working? Your rep strength is going up.
Rep strength.
Every time James and I would get a little too fat, we would be so fucking strong. And then we wouldn't lose the strength when we cut, right? We would lose the strength when we cut. And then fundamentally it'd be the same. And then we would mass again and get super fucking strong. And then we wouldn't really lose the strength. That's how you get first of all, that's how you get strong. And second of all, that's how you end up accreting a ton of muscle. It's evidence of your muscle accretion. Over the last year and a half, I put something like 120 pounds on my hack squat, and my quads physically look different. Like when I'm lean, they just look different. They're a different shape. There's not a quality thing. There's just stuff there that just didn't used to be there. It looks like a comedy show. So that's how it works. And if you're not much stronger, then do what it takes to get strong, which means slower bulking for longer and an emphasis on good technique and becoming stronger over time. That's it.
Absolutely.
Daniel Hacker says, hypertrophy-wise, if one has flat barbell bench programmed, can they use a cam bar for their down sets and then another incline press move in one session, or is that too much variation? I really want to improve my flat barbell bench, 10 to 20 pounds on my multi-set 7 to 10 numbers, but I also love cam bar benching. I have long arms and good mobility, and it absolutely wrecks me. However, I have been unsuccessful in programming each of these as priority movements throughout my last 6 to 9 months of training, between me prioritizing the flat bench for multiple mesos until it gets stale and switching to flat dumbbells for a bit and getting away from barbell, then back to barbells. I've been unable to program the camber bar bench, and it stinks because it messes me up so nicely. I guess I have a few questions based on that info. Are 3 chest movements in one session bad? Of course, keeping volumes for each one in the entire session in check. How can I program that cam bench, flat barbell bench, and flat dumbbell bench in a macro cycle where I prioritize flat bench, but still some love the cam bench and flat dumbbell press? Do you personally and for your clients pause your free weight / weighted chins at the, oh, sorry, different question. Okay, I have actually pretty decent answer. I'm going to assume you do 2 pushing sessions a week because you do at least 2. So push session number 1, you do heavy priority regular bench, and then on back off sets, on the second exercise, you do a dumbbell pressing variant, incline or flat, or incline barbell. The second session, you do cambered bar first, mess yourself up, and then do barbell as a lighter movement, barbell bench. That gives you more neural technical practice with barbell bench. It makes you really good at barbell bench. It modulates the fatigue so that you're not always cranking barbell bench heavy, and it lets you use cambered bar bench. So remember, you have 2 pushing sessions at least, which means you can get in the good quality work, and you can do the 3 exercises, but it's 3 to 4 exercises spread over 2 sessions instead of spread over 1. Is there some golden rule that says it's a bad idea to do 3? No, it's just it's highly inefficient use of your time. And I would say spread it over the sessions instead of over a session, James.
Very good. I think that much intra-session variation is unnecessary we just know who Daniel is, so forgive my assumptions if you think I'm assuming, but Daniel messages us a lot. He's an intermediate, I would say, and I think for an intermediate, that's just an unnecessary amount of variation, whereas for an advanced, it might be more necessary. The reason why it's unnecessary is because it's creating a potentially unfavorable long-term trade-off, or even you could say moderate to short term, as in session to session or week to week, but then also across different mesocycles of how much variation he can take advantage of. Or at that point too, he might be thinking like, okay, well, I'm only going to have 3 or 4 bench movements for this meso, and I'm hitting 3 of them on one session. And that means I'm definitely going to be overlapping at least on one on my other session, which is going to be causing more wear and tear on that movement. So that's why we would say it's probably not necessary.
Yep. Very good. All right. Next question from Daniel. Do you personally and for your clients pause your free weight weighted chins at the top, bottom, both, neither, and why not? So pausing them at the top is pausing them in the place of the highest mechanical disadvantage, which is short of pausing them like 3/4 of the way up. That's real tough, and probably just pisses away a lot of energy. So when you get to the top, I would just get to the top and come back down. If you want to pause vertical pulling variant, you should do it with assisted pull-ups, so you can get a good squeeze, or with pull downs where the weight can be intentionally manipulated to be lighter. As far as pausing at the bottom, I think pausing at the bottom is a really good idea for most pull-ups, just if anything to center the body and make sure that you're not getting into the swinging. You get the stochastically driven swinging. James, you ever see that where like the first 3 reps are good if you don't pause, and then you start to go, your legs go, and then you have to repause. And so I think a pause at the bottom, even if it's a baby pause, is always a good idea for safety perspective, because you definitely don't want to bounce out. Pause at the top, I think, is for assisted pull-ups and pull downs.
Yeah, I don't program that way. If I had clients who were more like like Charlie, like strong advanced males, I would. I just don't. So I don't do it for my clients. There are some machines that I think a little bit of bounce out of the bottom feels particularly good, and not good in the sense like, oh, I'm getting more reps than I should. It just has like a nice stretch shortening cycle feel. Though I don't generally encourage like bottoming out of movements really hard. There's some assisted pull machines, for whatever reason, they just feels really good to hit a little bounce out of it. And they also feel good hitting the peak contraction at the top. So that would be the only times when I would use that. Other than that, not really.
Yeah. Last one is, when you go above 12 to 15 reps in a movement, do you still pause that lift at the top and bottom, or just keep the movement controlled and constant? First of all, you can keep the movement controlled and constant. It's not a big downside anymore because the injury risk for weights that light is much lower than the 5 to 10 range, which we advocate pausing on more stringently and more often. But I would say that you don't enter the real bad downside of pausing at the top of a movement or bottom of a movement is in the 20 to 30 rep range, especially when you approach 25 reps plus, because those rep ranges have been calculated with non-pause movements. So pausing in a 25 plus rep scenario means almost certainly doing way less than 30% of your 1 rep max, which is probably just understimulative. So in the 12 to 15 range, no problem. Even up to 20 reps, I think pauses are fine if necessary. But it's totally cool if you don't do them. It's kind of like a 50-50. 20 to 30, so put you this way, actually make this real simple. 5 to 10, rep range, we recommend pauses at least part of the movement. On average, okay, 10 to 20, dealer's choice, specifically as required by the exercise to get the best SFR, mind-muscle connection, pump, so on and so forth, technique. 20 to 30, no pauses recommended as a matter of average course. So,
totally agree.
Sweet. All right. Will Adams says, hey guys, being I'm in the Adams family, everyone's kind of a ghost. Hey docs, hope you guys are doing well. Number one, I am considering competing in men's physique show later this year, but I don't know how to come out to my parents. It's 2019, just tell them. It's all good. Since later this year, since that division wears board shorts and not necessarily judged on legs, how would you recommend I manipulate my leg volume, MV, MEV? So actually, that's up to you. A lot of men's physique. So Jared Feather is actually men's physique champion. And he used to do men's physique until he grew up and did bodybuilding. There's a CT Fletcher interview where he's like, they're like, what do you think of men's physique people? He's like, these fake ass motherfuckers. Shit, Daddy, you ain't no bodybuilding bitch. You a bitch. And they cut him off. Like, all right, easy.
I just listened to him on Joe Rogan today.
I'm sure that's probably great, huh?
It was actually really good. The first hour was awesome, and then they kind of drifted off into bullshit.
Okay.
But the first hour was good.
CT can't train his way out of a plastic bag, but he's just like a really old, wise person who real talks. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to hear what he has to say about life. Like, I don't give a shit about training.
Well, he died so many times. He talked about that a lot. So he's interesting perspective.
And he's hilarious.
He's funny.
Right? So, okay, here's the real answer. You want to figure out what you want to do longitudinally first, and then base your decision entirely on that. Until and unless you're in men's physique at such a high level that your systemic MRV is interfered with heavily with your legs, and judges tell you, like, look, if you just got your arms bigger by 2%, you'd win every goddamn thing, and you're like, fuck, like, I got to stop training legs this much because my arms will never recover. I won't be able to put in the volume. That's probably not the case for you. And because you don't want to sort of really back off on your leg training, then, or if you don't care about your legs, sweet, MV, whatever, MV, or just stop training them. If you want your legs to stay the same size where you really focus on physique, MV. If you still want your legs to make some gains, but deprioritize to give yourself a lot of room in your total fatigue, in your total volume allotment, so that you can really pound your upper body, if that's required, because a lot of people, their entire upper body, it just takes them halfway up to MRV, right? So they don't even need to deprioritize their legs. But if you want to do that, totally cool, and MEV. But if you want to just keep training legs normally, because your upper body will never be limited by your legs, which is the case for most people, especially beginners, definitely beginners and most intermediates, then that's totally cool. Like Jared Feather, back to that, he trained his legs hard the entire time he was a physique athlete. At some point, he actually had big legs, and then he switched over to bodybuilding. So that's the deal. James?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just because you're doing a physique show now doesn't mean that you have to just throw in the towel on the legs. Like you might decide to continue doing physique later, or you might not. So I would say keep training your legs for now until it becomes a problem with your physique competition, or until you decide that what you want to do with physique sport. If you decide that you want to go into like classic physique or bodybuilding, then yeah, you're gonna be glad that you kept those legs, you know. And if you stay in men's physique, and like Mike said, you get bad feedback from the judges, like, hey man, you got to work on your delts or your pecs or whatever, then you can bring it down to MV and work more on the upper body stuff. I guess my short version is, don't just like throw on the towel on the legs because you want to do a physique show. And
there's nothing wrong with just keep training them.
Yeah, and I've been at shows before, and I've heard judges say when they see guys' ass and quads sticking out of their board shorts, where they go, that guy trains legs. So whether or not you're judged on it or not, you definitely get the respect nod either way.
Yeah. Another thing that people don't consider is if you have bigger legs, your board shorts fan out more, and it actually gives the illusion of a bigger X frame. It's still a thing. So give that some thought.
Yeah.
Number 2, in terms of exercises per meso, would you recommend keeping the number down? Example, 1 horizontal and vertical pull each day versus filling in all the MPT boxes with different movements. Also for body parts like delts and biceps, would you recommend sticking to maybe 2 exercises in varying rep range rather than 4 exercises per week, 1 each day? So we just answered a very similar question. We've answered a lot of these over the years in the webinars, and we'll definitely, by the way, the drummer, I don't know if I said this, the rough draft of the hypertrophy book is written, and James and Jared are going to be hawking that thing and burning most of it. But there's very detailed guidelines there, but we'll just sum it up super easy for you today. the middle is the best ground. So you don't want to use like one exercise for the whole week for the whole month. That's conserving way too much variation, and it doesn't offer you any benefits, and it actually has some joint wear and tear and staleness downsides. But you don't want to take like all 5 of the movements. So what we generally say is 1 to 3 movements per muscle group per session, 2 to 4 per week.
Yes. Really good.
And I think that's a literal quote from the book. So
yeah. I feel dorky saying this, but this is, of course, again, for physique training. You know, for sport training, otherwise, it's completely different. But
totally, yep. But for physique, that's the deal.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. The way my leg training routine is currently split, I do 1 quad heavy day with light hams and a heavy hinge day with light quads. Sounds great.
Great.
On my second day, I have recently been finishing off with a giant set / high rep walking lunges or rear foot elevated split squats.
Ooh.
Good burn.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Because the load is light and the reps are high, though, would just qualify as junk volume. Nope. So long as it is close to failure and between no higher than 30 reps per set, you're good to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely a nice way to wrap up that session. Oof.
Yeah.
You ain't doing shit after that either.
Yeah, for real. Like, oh, it's an easy quad day. You're like, yeah, easy's not how I would describe it, just light.
Yeah.
All right. Jackson Beaches, Jackson Boulders, Jackson Skies, and Jackson Woods comes in and asks the following question.
The name sounds strong.
Yeah. Hi, docs. I recently started experimenting with taking 8 grams of mushrooms before my workout, and I have no idea what I'm training or why. 8 grams of creatine instead of 5, and I've noticed my muscles cramp up more often randomly throughout the day than they used to. I have not changed my training at all. Do you think this is because of the creatine? Maybe. If so, would you recommend going back down to 5? Yes. First of all, Jackson, there's no good reason to do 8. Almost every human being on Earth, unless you're Eddie Hall, will be saturated at 5, especially given a couple of weeks. Stick to 5. And if the cramping goes away, you're good to go. Now, the cramping might have nothing to do with the creatine, but look, if you got cramping and there's literally, as Broderick would say, no upside to 8, why the fuck would you do it? Stop.
Yeah, I mean, given the information that you've given us, it would seem like the creatine's the most logical thing to manipulate here. But it also might be like, okay, well, I was eating bananas and now I'm not,
Sure.
Something like that. So, I'd say the creatine's a good place to start, but it could be unrelated.
Yeah. Ooh, really interesting question from Tony Drotnell. Hey guys, as a recovery method, is there any validity to progressively adding rest days to a microcycle over the course of a mesocycle? For instance, starting with 4 working days per standard 7-day microcycle, 2 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off, or 2 on, 2 off, then adding a rest day between one of the working day pairs and going on an 8-day microcycle, or eventually splitting both working day pairs to produce a 9-day microcycle, alternating 1 day off and with 2 days rest between. I've been playing around with the addition of a single day in the last week of my accumulation phase when I'm really exhausted, and it definitely alleviates fatigue, but how much of the stimulus can I get away with before my SRA curves fall out of line and mess up adaptation? Actually, I have a really good answer for this. My suspicion is that on the mass phase, adding an extra rest day midway through the accumulation phase wouldn't really have any detrimental effects. One could probably get away with even adding a second extra rest day towards the end of the mesocycle. On maintenance, one added rest might be near the limit of adaptation. Well, you're not really trying to adapt to maintenance, so you're shot yourself in the foot on that one. And on cut, even 1 extra day might start to risk muscle loss unless it comes in at the very end. Am I totally off base? You're not totally off base, but I'll tell you what. So in effect, because of the way we structure recovery and sessions, as you move from hypertrophy to strength to peaking in a powerlifting or weightlifting program design, you are essentially adding rest days as the weeks go on. If you look at the weeks through the mesocycles, through the block, right? Weeks 1 through 12, let's say it's 4 mesocycles and 12-week block of hypertrophy strength peaking, you're essentially just adding rest days more and more and more, because if we count rest days and recovery sessions as the same, you're reducing the overload frequency. The benefit of that is an enhanced preparedness at all times, which allows you to train harder and harder and harder at higher intensities. If you do that on a hypertrophy-only training split, I'm assuming this is for hypertrophy, then you are enhancing preparedness, but the next question is why? And there's not really a good answer for that. Now, you will have good workouts, but the thing is you're reducing your total volume load per mesocycle. You're actually, in effect, dilating, contracting your accumulation to deload paradigm, because you're essentially counting most of those rest days. Let's say you would just do them all at the end in a deload. You are training 5-to-1 paradigm, but you take more and more rest days as you go. And essentially, you're not training at a 4-to-1 paradigm. So for hypertrophy training, concentrating a high amount of volume is the goal. Hitting PRs as itself is not the goal. Does that mean that in the last week of hypertrophy training, it's okay to take an extra rest day just to have another great week of hypertrophy training? Yes. But should you programmatically, from the outset, add in sessions of rest sessions as a matter of course? No, because the purpose of that is to enhance preparedness. And there is no good reason to enhance preparedness as the cycle goes on in a hypertrophy cycle, because it reduces the accumulation to deload paradigm in essence, and you just get worse gains. Now, here's the problem. You get worse gains as a matter of time. So like it would take you the same gains to get 5 weeks of training as you could have gotten in 4. But the benefit is you have these super great workouts. Remember, we are not in hypertrophy training to have super great workouts. Super great workouts are a consequence of the actions of hypertrophy training, not the other way around, James.
Yeah, that was really good. A couple things I would add. The first thing is that there's nothing wrong with using like a non-traditional or like a non-linear week-to-week schedule. I'm totally up for that. I think that's a good idea. What I would do, Tony, is if that's what you want to do, it's better to just start that way. There's nothing wrong with adjusting your microcycles to better accommodate your own personal SRA curves. What I wouldn't do is start with like a traditional schedule and then modify into a non-traditional schedule later. Just adds a little bit too much crazy variation. And like Mike said, you have to make a good case as to why you're doing that. So I think if you wanted to have like a 9-day microcycle, that's fine. Just run it the whole time and just keep it.
Also, you can modulate volume. You can modulate volume and accomplish basically the same thing.
Sure. But I think doing it that way, like some sports just do that, like track and field does that just kind of as like their default. They don't necessarily follow a pure week to week. And I'm not against that. I think it's okay. I tend to favor the week to week for this reason, is that adding that much variation with like a whole nother rest day and getting off of your normal routine, I think sometimes does more harm than good in terms of maintaining a good schedule, maintaining circadian rhythms, maintaining, stress levels, psychological health, all that stuff. So I think there is something to be said about having the consistency in the routine and that being very, very positive. But again, I'm also not against a non-traditional microcycle. I'm just against changing the microcycle midway through for the reasons Mike already outlined.
Yeah. Very, very good. That's another reason why James and I are against adding exercises as the mesocycle goes. I made up a term for this in the book. I forgot what it is. Stochastic interference or something like that. Like where you basically introduce randomness and you want to do as little of that as possible. This is, it's a made up term in the sense that it's just a good term for something that is a real concept. The concept was never termed for us. It was taught to us by one of the best sports scientists of all time, Bill Sands. Introducing variation for a nebulous reason is always a bad thing.
Yes.
Like variation by itself, because of a stochastic, or for those not in the know what that means, a randomness-based element, variation itself is already a negative. Think of it this way, super great analogy. You have a couple of spices and maybe some sugars or some other kind of additives like cinnamon and stuff, and you have this really good pie recipe that was written by a professional chef. Should you add your own little bullshit to it? That's variation. And the pie that you have, made by a professional chef, that recipe is your normal training program. So what you end up having here is this. How do you know whether or not to add variation? And in other words, how do you know whether or not to add these spices or whatever that you're doing to the pie recipe? There's got to be a compelling reason. Like you taste the dough and it's not cinnamony enough, then you add cinnamon. Like you look at your program, it doesn't have enough variation to accomplish specific things, then you add variation. But if you want to add variation for like, ooh, maybe this will be good, not a compelling enough reason, because variation has the negative. Just like a good pie recipe, if you fuck with it, it's probably going to make it worse. Random experimentation with really good recipes almost always makes them worse. Random experimentation with good training programs almost always makes them worse because it throws that stochastic element in. So keep that in mind before you start altering rest days, adding exercises midway through, rep range deviations, so on and so forth.
Yeah, really good. Mike, do you mind if I step away for like 2 seconds?
No worries. Do you want me to just take a question on while you're gone?
Keep the train rolling. I'm going to mute my microphone so I'm not making noise.
No worries. Sounds good.
Thanks.
All right. Matthias Warnstorm says, "Hey, cunts, I'm back." What's up, Matthias? All right. As I'm trying to tame my thoughts, I reckon I have some different questions this time. No worries. Number one, with regards to junk volume, since a weight that is heavy enough to concentrically, that a weight that is heavy enough concentrically will still be rather easy eccentrically. Is it not possible that placing too much focus on the eccentric could be categorized as junk volume? Yes, as we are wasting time and energy prolonging the phase that really isn't challenging the muscle in any way compared to the concentric. So this was answered actually last week and again this week. If you do pauses that are excessively long, and that's the isometric version, but if you do accentuated eccentrics, like slow eccentrics, we don't recommend you do them in the 20 to 30 rep range because you are reducing the load so much. You can turn it into junk volume. So 10 to 20 rep range, if you take a 10 to 20 rep range and you say, okay, 10 to 20 rep range, but with slow eccentrics, you're probably actually in a weight that's 20 to 30 reps, totally fine still. But if you're in the 20 to 30 rep range and you do slow eccentrics, you're in like 30 to 40 rep range, which is junk volume. So totally, you're completely right. You got it. So yes, it's fine to use the accentuated eccentrics, but only in the 10 to 20 and 5 to 10 rep range. There's no light of that. It says, I am well aware of the potential lengthening muscles under load and all that. However, I'm not sure of the merit to this reasoning. However, if I do not ask this question, I'll play go mad for alternative. Hopefully we answered it. TLDR, since the eccentric part is relatively easy and the concentric is not a waste to spend more time than necessary there. Yes, in the light enough rep range as it is. Just slowing it down enough to make the movement safe and not purposefully focusing on the eccentric. Totally. And you can slow it down even more than that. You'll just shift the rep range you're actually doing. So if you have a really slow eccentric for sets of 5, that might actually be your 15 RM, which is still a meat and potatoes great way to grow muscle. You just have to know that that's what you're doing. So you don't tell people like, oh yeah, I trained sets of 5s today. Like I trained in the 5 to 10 rep range. You actually didn't, right? You didn't train in that loading range. And remember, rep ranges and loading ranges have proxy to each other. So you got to keep that in mind. So, okay, number 2, mini cut. James came back at the right time.
Came back at the right time, huh?
I started my mini cut 4 weeks ago with a slightly modified approach. Yes, I read the manual. Sweet. You've actually clarified that you read the manual several times, which is good. Just to give some background info, diet 200 protein, 100 carbs, 45 fats for 1,000 plus calorie deficit. Training/NEAT bumped up my steps from 5K to 10 to 12K and continue to do MPT for 6x a week and karate for 2 to 3x a week. Body weight has started at 75 kilograms, now I'm down to 70. I started out with my guess as to what my MPT volumes would be on a mini cut, though roughly my MPT numbers on a regular cut. And this is where the modified approach takes place. As I started to get into week 2, 3, and 4, I evaluated my performance in each exercise. If I was performing the same or better, I kept the sets the same and or increased the weight. If I was performing worse, I would add a set. Interesting. The reason behind this is that I pretty much knew that I wasn't doing too much training. That's not a bad idea. So any decreases would likely be due to lack of sets, maybe, rather than too many. So I would, or just way too much fatigue from the diet. Yeah, it's not bad. So I would add a set to compensate for this, but I'm sure there are other variables that could actually affect my performances. Yes. Does that sound like a decent approach overall to a mini cut? I would not use performance because there's too many variables going in there. But I think you do have the right idea. I would use things like the Ghetto MEV landmarks, pump, soreness, and effort perception. If you feel that those are scoring a low, more sets. If you feel like they're good enough, don't increase any sets, increase the weight. Because the performance drop can occur for a lot of reasons. And he says that if you see performance going down in some exercises, while all things being in decent ranges, you would increase slightly to counteract that perhaps you're just below your actual MV number. So remember, performance dropping, you would have to be below maintenance volume, and for a while, being below maintenance volume actually increases performance because it allows you to drop fatigue. And so performance metrics within, we'll say this a whole lot. Performance metrics, short of detecting, are very good for detecting MRV within a mesocycle, but they're very bad at detecting everything else within a mesocycle. That you have to use other proxies for. So I would say use the Ghetto landmarks and then be a little better.
I think that's a great answer.
Okay. Number 3, a continuation of the above question on my mini cut. During my mini cut, I've been hovering around 100 grams of carbs per day. Usually my average is about 250. However, I can't say that I feel or look more flat than usual. Of course, this can certainly be my mind playing tricks, and I guess that's very likely, but I'd like to explore as an alternative. Is it possible that I can still be full at this level of carbs? No. I feel like I don't know enough about relative or absolute numbers with regards to carb intake and how it relates to glycogen loss to make this call. Oh, you're almost certainly not full at 100. and maybe your training volume is pretty decent and you're doing a lot of karate, and because you are slightly leaner now, then you look pretty good.
That's what I was going to say. It's the fullness versus the leanness can be a mind trick.
I'll tell you exactly, Matthias, when you're going to get onto realizing you're flat. When you do like 300 grams of carbs for a couple of days after you're done with your mini cut, and you look like a fucking water balloon superhuman.
Yeah.
then you'll realize you were flat. Yeah, I didn't. So I recently finished a cut, and I thought I was pretty full at various points in the cut, and I knew I had to be flat because I was eating so little. When I carved up, I was like fucking enormous. I was like, oh my god, I'm a war machine. How does this happen? And I was like, of course I was flat. It had to be flat. So you'll fill out.
And just food for thought here too. Your concern about how flat you are during a mini cut is just a waste of time. I mean, you're supposed to flatten out, and you're like it's midway between a mass or prepping for a mass, so it's like, meh, who cares? Outside of just curiosity. I mean, your question's perfectly fine, but if you're perseverating on this, I would say just forget about it and move on.
Totally. It says, overall, I tend to not get notably better pumps or appearance changes when loading with carbs. It's almost like they don't do much for above minimum levels. There's a genetic variation about that. Maybe this relates to me being obese most of my life and having poor genetics for sensitivity. Fuck knows. Thanks, Dad. Yeah, Dad really fucked you. No, I'm just kidding. You never know. Sometimes you tend to pick up insulin sensitivity over time, a long time of training and a long time of being leaner. So you'll figure it out. But 100 grams of carbs, you definitely could store more glycogen unless you're some kind of total freak.
Especially given your workload. I mean, yeah. Training and karate stuff, like you're definitely not full.
Yeah. Number 4. This is one of the more off topic, and I realize out of your expertise. However, I recall hearing Mike speak about this sometime, so I'll give it a shot. I feel bad, even at times depressed, if I don't get stuff done, and I'm productive 90% of the time. I need to learn to do, fix, write, listen to interviews, and feel like I'm being useful and not wasting time. Feel like I'm being useful, not wasting time. Preferably at least 2 of these things at the same time, like cleaning / cardio combined with learning. Jesus. Else I tend to feel very bad and that I'm wasting time. Do you have any tips on how to handle this mindfuck? Yes. I try to allocate my time into being productive until a certain time of night, then give myself a break before bed with activities that don't have to teach me something. It works sometimes. I will add that I have ADD and high functioning autism, if that makes a difference.
It does.
It does. Also, according to this investigation, if my working memory is apparently something like 2 or 3 standard deviations above the mean, which they say explains why I have a hard time turning it off, filtering, and organizing certain information. Cheerio, Iron Mates. Well, so good news for your high-functioning autism is you may very well benefit from making a to-do list in the morning and listing the number of podcasts and which ones you're going to listen to, how much cleaning you're going to do, not time-wise, but things to get done. And you're going to make that list easy very possible to execute, a little challenging, but definitely doable. And you're not going to add any more to that. You're going to crank through that list. And if you finish way early, you're going to look at some of the stuff you're going to have for tomorrow's list, because you might not have sorted all of it, and move it into today's list because you're like, oh, I'm 2 hours early, and then do it, and then feel extra good about yourself. But when you're done with your to-do list, you've literally deleted every item, you relax and chill and watch TV or do whatever it is. The to-do list organizes your day. You do, so you get that awesome feeling of accomplishment, and it's it's not an ambiguous feeling of accomplishment. It's a very unambiguous. It's exact. I did exactly what I had planned, exactly what aligns with my long-term interests. I accomplished it, and I'm done, and I'm good. You can do that. I got my to-do list. I got a to-do list every single fucking day of my life. And I've been sticking to it like crazy over the last several months, but definitely several years. And it makes me unbelievably happy and organized and all this other stuff. So I would say a to-do list is a real good idea. Because then once you finish with your to-do list, you don't have to feel like a piece of shit anymore because you won. And if you think, oh man, I didn't do enough, just relax that day. Tomorrow, make your to-do list a little beefier. And maybe you'll even have a challenge getting it done. And then you'll feel really accomplished.
So yeah, those are really good. So I do the same thing that Mike does. I got this thing. It's something you can get on Amazon. It's just a productivity planner. And the reason this helps me, it's nothing that you can't do on your own. It's just put on paper for you. it gives you some different objectives throughout the week. So at the beginning of each week, you write down the date. You say, these are the things that need to get done this week. And then it breaks down every day where it says, okay, here's the things I need to get done today. And then you rank order them and you can kind of check them off, or you can say, okay, I worked on this for 25 minutes, but I'm not done yet. I got to come back to it. And it really helps me in the sense that, like, sometimes you might be sitting around thinking like, oh, you're being a piece of shit, or like, what do I got to do? And it really forces you to prioritize and say, what are the things that actually have to get done today, life or death? And then you can say, okay, now here's some things that I want to get done today that will make me feel really good. Here are some things that probably should get done today, but it's not a huge deal. And then you can go through it and do all the things that Mike said. This is just kind of a handy way of organizing it for yourself. And so for me, like if I'm midway through the day and I'm like, oh, I'm feeling like a piece of shit, but I got 1 and 2 already done. I'm like, no, I'm doing good. Let me just keep working on 3 and 4, maybe take a break, work on some of my weekly stuff. And then here in California, we also have marijuana, which is a really good way of calming the fuck down. So if that's available to you, I would explore that as well.
There you go. Yeah. A bunch of my friends actually, when they finish their work day, they get high and then they don't think anymore. So
honestly, I traditionally have not been a marijuana user. I've just been exploring it since I've been here in California, just because it's legal and very easy. And so sometimes I'll get the not the THC heavy ones, but the CBD heavy ones. And that just makes my body feel like I had boulders on my shoulders, and now like they're just gone. Now I'm in like a anti-gravity chamber. The THC ones make me feel stupid, like I get high, like
sure.
Up top. The CBD heavy ones, I don't get quite as stupid, but I feel really relaxed, which is a nice feeling. So give it a shot.
There you go. Very cool. All right. Jorge Galeano Requeña. Hello, guys. I already listened to 3 pages worth of webinars, and I feel like I can already unfollow and unsubscribe every training and fitness account on Instagram and YouTube already. Doesn't get better than listening to you. Plus, I get to ask you questions. Crazy. Yeah, it's funny because I get a ton of people on Instagram asking me a bunch of questions, and I'm like, have you considered RP Plus? And I never hear back from them. So glad you guys are here with us.
The funny thing is, after they message you, they message me.
Yeah. And
I get the repeats. I tell them the same thing.
Questions. Number 1, in your experience for the natural athlete, how many specialization mesocycles in a row do you need to see noticeable improvement on a specific body part? 3, what is best movement? What is the best moment to start one? Well, whenever you want to specialize / when you need to specialize, when you really feel like your systemic fatigue is impinging your ability to generate local fatigue into enough local volume to as much as you will. So for example, your biceps aren't as pumped or as sore as they could get and still recover, but you're so tired from bent rows and all this other shit that you're just like, oh, I just can't train arms anymore. That's when you need a specialization meso. That's it.
And another kind of indirect way of saying the same thing is like if you've done the last 2, like if you've run 2 mass macros sorry, I'm feeling stupid. Let's say you've run 2 mass macros and you have not noticed a really substantial amount of changes from the last 2. Right, where you go, I massed, but I don't know. I gained weight, I got stronger, but I don't look all that different. Now's a good time to start thinking about specializing.
Yep. Is it true that you make your best gains the leaner you are? Does it make sense to start a big specialization mesocycle after major cut? Yeah, totally. You really, because it's 3 mesos at least, you'll notice that corresponds to really your entire mass should be specialized. Like if you want to bring up, this is how it works, and most bodybuilders do this. If you want to bring up your quads, you take your entire off season to bring up your quads, which in our parlance is your whole mass phase is quad priority, like multiple mesos, quads, right? It's not like something you just pepper in. Also, can you combine an arms plus quad specialization mesocycle? Yes. Or does it have to be either arms or chest or back or legs? No, that's just the way we did the templates because it's more convenient. That's what most people want. Most people aren't like, I want to get my arms and legs bigger. But if you can't, absolutely. It's just about moving away a little bit. The chest, back, and shoulders have to get a little bit less. So,
Yep.
Number 2, bent over row technique. Are you supposed to control the eccentric on the way down?
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm only able to do that if I stay in the 10 to 20 range. That's not true. Also, do you arch your lower back or stay more neutral? I would say arching is a good idea, but at least neutral. Let's get back to that one, James. Get through these real quick. I normally keep the back flat, but the other day I tried to keep my lower back arched, and the next day I was noticeably sore there, not pain. Yeah, good. Yeah, totally. You should keep your lower back arched in bent over rows, but neutral is okay. Arched is ideal. The 10 to 20 rep range, real quick, and then James will take it away. You don't what you really mean is you have to use a weight that is currently in your 10 to 20 rep range, but it will be in your 5 to 10 rep range if executed properly. So you have to control the eccentric. It's a huge part of the movement. You're not doing pendlay rows. You're doing bent rows. So you're going to have to humble yourself, and your old 10 to 20 reps are going to be your new 5 to 10, James.
We had the same idea, and we're phrasing it in different ways. So what I was going to say is, if you're not able to control the eccentric of the bent rows, that means you're probably doing a shitty concentric technique to get it up, right? So that means maybe you don't realize it, maybe you're not trying to do it, but you might be doing a counter movement, pulling your body down to the bar, or you might be hiking it up with your hips a little bit. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to control it in the 5 to 10 rep range, outside of it being a super maximal load for the 5 to 10 rep range. So what Mike said is absolutely true. That means it's probably more of a 10 to 20 rep range weight that you're using. So I would definitely reevaluate your loads and technique. You might be doing really, really strict technique 10 to 20 and really shiza technique in the 5 to 10. And that's probably the issue.
Yep. All right. Also, okay, walking lunges, these always get my glutes sore the day after, though I feel them on my quads. Same here. Should I count them like one set equals one set of glute and a half set for quads? I would count one set of glutes and one set of quads.
Yeah, doing the fractionals is just just unnecessarily complicated.
They're definitely a set for quads.
Yeah.
Number 4, is it too bad if I lose an arm pump on a session? I'm hitting all the upper body, but I'm prioritizing arms by doing them first. No, it's not terrible. It's not terrible.
Does he mean like he does arms, get a pump, and then when he moves on to upper body, the pump in the arms goes away?
Yeah, totally. Your arm pump is definitely going to be less towards the end, so that's totally fine.
That's fine.
Yeah. Number 5, since small muscles don't add very much fatigue, can you go RIR 2 or 1 on the muscles like biceps and triceps every mesocycle from week 1? You can, but what is the purpose of such a thing? If you did RIR 3 or 4, you could have longer progressions or progress more in intensity and make better gains. So remember, there's no magic between RIR 1 and 0 or 2 and 1. 3 and 4 are very productive, so do them. I feel like I'm not getting a workout if I do them RIR 3 on my first weeks. Just do more sets, except for bis and tris movements that involve a barbell / easy bar. Do more sets. That's much better than going closer to failure, unless you're like super constrained for time, and then totally go to failure.
So one problem that you run into with arms and accessory movements is if you start an RIR of 1 or 2 and then try to keep that up, the cumulative fatigue that you get from progressing on the other movements will start to tap into how many reps you can get on those movements later on. For example, your bench work is going to prevent you from being able to get reps in your tricep work simply because you just started too aggressively. Whereas if you just would have backed off a little bit and done more sets, you probably could have maintained the reps throughout the entire meso. And if you don't believe me, try it.
That comes back to a lot of our shit. Yeah. All right, Jacob Wren. Hi, Docs. First-time question asker. I got our P+ about 1 to 2 weeks ago, and loving the Q&As. I've watched about 20 of them. Holy shit.
Nice.
Everything now. Now onto my question. My friend recently started lifting. He started a bit overweight, and I try to teach him as much as possible without overwhelming him, so I try to do it gradually.
Nice.
He started researching online, and I believe he has found some good resources. However, I'm worried that he focuses on the wrong things. For example, he started asking about pre-workouts. Of course he did. Jesus Christ. After a second gym session, and today he asked about creatine and some weird bench setup that he saw a high-level powerlifter do. I guess my question is, how would I get him to focus on the right things, like following a structured program, which I can probably write and individualize for him, looking over his diet, etc. Today, I straight up told him that he focuses on the wrong things, because that was a bad idea, but I'm still worried that he gets caught up in searching for the magic pill. Any thoughts on how to help without becoming authoritative or sounding douchebag? Yes, actually, I have a really, really good advice for you. Sorry for the long question. Jesus Christ. Come on, man. You said you've been watching 20 of these. This is not a long question, and you know it.
Yeah, did you see what fucking Jan Fries did the last week?
Yeah, Jan Fries. That's a long question. Sorry for the long question. Love everything you guys put out. Thanks so much, man. I have a really good answer for you. What you have to do is be completely honest and tell him the truth. What is the truth? Is he focusing on the wrong things and that's bad? No. The truth is that it's totally fine, like in the sense of like a universal chi will still be in balance if he starts to think about pre-workouts, and if he starts doing, like if he takes a pre-workout, is that going to destroy him? No, it's fine. If he focuses on his bench technique for an elite powerlifter, is it okay? Yes, he'll still get the same great gains. So what's the truth? The truth is you can be like, look, man, yeah, like you can look up that stuff and some of it works. Most of it's like a benefit, but we're talking about like it's a real small difference, man. I just don't want you to be disappointed that you invest so much time into these things and they just don't pay off. Like if you just follow a super consistent program and are real meticulous about the numbers and progressions, that's going to be like 90% of your gains. That's what's going to get you fucking huge. You can tell them like everyone who's fucking big follows a program and they get stronger over time. Like there's a reason Larry Wheels benches 600 pounds. It's not because of his setup. It's not because he takes creatine. It's because he's been training for 12 years and he's gotten stronger over time doing basic, good, hardcore shit. So if you just tell him that and be like, look, like I'm not telling you not to go get a pre-workout, but I'm telling you it's just not going to make a big fucking difference. And if you want to piss away money on it, that's totally cool. But you got my blessing. But it's not a thing. Like imagine telling teens that about drugs. They're like, I want to do pot, Dad. You're not going to stop me. You're like, yeah, you can. Pot's just not that great. It's a fine drug, but like it's just if you're thinking it's going to make you friends or it's going to change your life, fucking enjoy it. It's underwhelming. Like if a teen hears that from his parents, I'm like, oh, damn it, I'm never trying pot.
Yeah.
I want things to be forbidden, like, so I'm not saying he's your teenage son, but you don't want to be like, oh, that's stupid and push him away. Be like, yeah, that stuff's definitely a thing. Like pre-workouts give you more energy. It's good. A good bench setup definitely makes you bench a little bit more, but in the grand scheme, that's such a tiny difference that you say, look, like all the stuff works, but what I'm giving you here is like the meat and potatoes. It's the question. It's the difference between this. Like, should we, like, I'm really hungry. Should we go search for the perfect little mini chocolate for me to buy at this fancy chocolate store and eat one? Or should we go to like a really fucking solid all-you-can-eat buffet, Chinese buffet, and fucking smash food? Well, if you're really hungry, will that little chocolate still taste better if it's the right one and the expensive one? Yes, of course. Like it'll taste amazing. But will it make you not hungry? Only by a little. So are you going to be like, dude, it's so stupid that we're looking for this chocolate? It's not stupid, but there's just better uses of your time, like going to find a Chinese buffet and eating a shitload. It's going to attack the problem with a bigger spread. Here's another really quick analogy. If you are trying to shoot someone in an armored personnel carrier or something, and you're like, okay, I got this rifle that's accurate to within 1,200 meters, and this rifle is accurate to within 1,400 meters, but all I got to do is place a round just on the side of the vehicle, and the vehicle's 200 meters away. Which rifle should I get? Are you really going to tell someone that the 400-meter accuracy rifle is a worse choice? No, but is it worth the extra money or the extra points in a video game? Probably not. What if you have a grenade launcher that's accurate to 300 meters and it's just accurate enough to hit the armored personnel carrier? That's your fucking choice. So just make sure he doesn't trade away the grenade launcher of good hardcore training and just stop doing that and start taking pre-workouts, which is like the super sniper rifle. Is it good to have a 1,400 meter range sniper rifle? Of course it is. Of course it's better than 1,200, which is like training without a pre-workout. But it's just not that much better, and it's just not the right fix for the problem.
Yeah, those are all really, really excellent points. One thing I would also add is you don't want to discourage him from like exploring other areas of fitness as well. So like it's really positive that he's looking into things on his own.
Yeah,
saying like, oh, I saw this. He's taking ownership of it. So I would, all the things that Mike said, I think are really good. And what that gives you is an opportunity for dialogue, right? Where he might say like, what do you think about this pre-workout? And you go, you know what, man, I'm not into it, but why don't you, if you want to try it and we can talk about it and tell me how you feel, right? You might find that it was great. You might find that it didn't do anything. I don't think it does anything. I don't think it's worth your money, but hey, go fucking try it. Because what's he going to do? Was he going to not go get it, right? He's going to see that fucking Quake or like Boner Tech 9000. He's going to fucking try it because that's what everybody does when they're young men or when they're getting excited about fitness. So my point being is like he's making really positive changes where he's becoming more autonomous. He's looking into things fitness related. And so you don't want to discourage that behavior immediately by being like, no, look at this fucking pyramid I saw on RP. Let's see, you're stupid. Which is, I know that's not what you're doing, but take it as a positive, right? He's looking into things. It gives you a chance to talk about it. And then I would use all the strategies. When you do talk about it, use all the strategies that Mike said. But you don't want to discourage good behavior, right? Yep. Okay, here's one that gets me. And this is personal. Mike, sometimes people on your page say really gross, like dick sucking things. And I'm like, ugh, right? Where this guy's like, Dr. Mike, I want to fucking fillet you in front of everyone. And I'm like, dude, gross, man. That's gross. What are you doing? But at the same time, like how many people online are negative all the time?
Yeah.
Right. You have somebody who's, although it's gross, he's being nice. He's being positive, maybe inappropriately positive.
Complimentary. Yeah.
Complimentary. So you don't want to be like, hey, dude, stop saying that shit to my friend. No, he's trying to compliment my friend. And although I think it's gross, you don't want to discourage
that way, but yeah, sure.
the same idea. So you don't want to discourage good behavior. You just want to help direct the good behavior to a more positive area.
100%.
Some people do
All
post gross
right.
stuff on your wall. Somebody said something the other day where I literally was like, "Ugh," where they were like, Mike, I want to like touch you and shape you in like Atlas. Da, 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 da. I don't even remember what it was, but I was grossed out. I was like, dude, you're a grown man. I look on his profile. He has like a family. I was like, you are a grown man with a family.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, there's a whole lot of that going on.
Right?
Woof. All right. Sean Murakawa Rubin, when two continents collide. Hello. I hope James has been able to see Endgame by now.
I did.
If not, by now I imagine it must be pretty difficult to avoid spoilers. If you're one of the 3 people on Earth who hasn't seen it yet, have you seen it? What do you think? James, what do you think?
Okay, so I liked Endgame. It was a good movie. I liked Infinity War better. Here's why. Infinity War, it's a sci-fi movie. Given that it's a sci-fi movie, you got to let some things slide, right? No big deal. I'm totally up for that. Infinity War, you could just soak it in, and it was great, funny, emotional roller coaster. Endgame, they really pushed how much you're gonna let things slide, right? So the time travel is obviously like the big one where you're kind of like, okay, how are we really going here? But then they start like getting other shit weird where they're like, not only are they time traveling, but now they can just teleport to places seemingly inexplicably. The ending sequence with Captain America didn't make any fucking sense. So I liked it. It was good, but it was pushing the limits of how much sci-fi stuff I was willing to kind of let slide. You know what? Does that make sense?
For sure.
It was good. I enjoyed it, but there was a couple. Fat Thor is easily the best part of the movie for me.
It was funny. The jokes were fucking amazing. Yeah, I wish there was more of the Guardians guys, but I'm glad that what's his name, Rocket, was in it a lot.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm sad Vin Diesel didn't have a bigger.
For sure, right? Bigger voice role. My favorite character, and I said this online, and people thought I was trolling, was Captain Marvel. I think she's a goddess, and I
like
just
the
love the way
midway through the movie.
haircut was amazing. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's a fucking stupid SJW haircut." Like, shut up! A woman, it's 2019. A woman can have a short haircut. You fucking incel retard. Seriously, they're like, "Oh, I don't like feminists." Like, you don't even talk to women, dog. What the fuck are you talking about? So, forget all the feminist shit. It's so funny because, sorry, real quick, all the guys are like, she's not like a deep character and is like kind of a standoff bitch. Like, do you know how many guys are standoff asshole characters and you love them? Like, Harrison Ford in Han Solo is an asshole and people love that. Like, it's a fucking double standard. She's a fucking straight bitch, dude. She's a fucking sharpshooting. Remember when Thor like gets the axe and she's just like, and he's like, I like her.
Yeah.
Like, you're a fucking warrior, dude. You better respect the fucking. Also, she's literally a Super Saiyan because same powers as a Super Saiyan.
Exactly.
And she's the only one out of everyone who they divert all of the guns of the spaceship to try to fuck with. It doesn't work because she just like brings down fucking Thanos' entire ship by herself. There's somebody said there's a really good reason why she's not in the movie much, because the movie would be way shorter if she was in it all the time.
Yeah. No,
she basically
sure.
beats up Thanos twice. He has to use the Power Stone by itself to fucking hit her off him. She's not even like incapacitated. She just comes right back. You're just like, I love it. I love it. It's so funny too, because they're like, hey, who's going to carry the glove now? And it's her and all the ladies of Marvel. But like, I just, the first thought I had was she like does her smirk, and I was like, yo, all these other ladies can fucking retire. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
Captain Marvel is good enough.
The rest of you, this is a charity. You can stand around me.
Seriously, you lucky you're in the presence of greatness. You feel me? She saves Tony Stark's life in the first part of the movie. He just flies through space, finds his spaceship. Why not? You know, it's unbelievable.
I don't want to get off on a tangent too far here. The first part of the movie, I didn't like at all. So first of all, like the tension about like what happens to Tony is alleviated immediately, and then they just go to where Thanos is.
Yeah,
I was like, what? This is
you could tell
20 minutes
it was
of the movie.
too soon for you to be tempted into thinking it was going to work. So there wasn't like, you knew it was a failed plot. You knew like, okay, well, clearly this something's up. But it is. I did like that Thor cuts his head off. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And I love how Captain Marvel basically leads that attack by beating the shit out of him and taking his back and choking him half to death. It was like, see, and she like uses her leg to pry open the glove at the same time. I was like, God damn, this is high level shit, dude. Unbelievable.
Yeah. There was parts that I liked, but I liked Infinity War better.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So questions from Sean. Number one, are the 45-degree leg press and horizontal leg press very biomechanically different? Do they have largely similar strength curves and angles of force? Would you say they're different enough to be considered different exercises across training days in a microcycle? They are, simply because the individual machine designs they represent are going to be different enough. But you can make a 45-degree in a horizontal leg press that's identical in all of its force curves, but usually they're not, just because the machines are different. So are 2 leg press machines different exercises? Yes, they are. Do we recommend using 2 different leg presses in the same mesocycle? No, because you should do something much more different than that. It's like doing close stance feet forward squats and close stance squats at the same time. It's like, come on. Yeah, so
that's a good point.
All right, number 2. I mentioned a few weeks ago that for personal lifestyle reasons, I use the old school approach of keeping sets constant, focusing on rep and load increases. For this type of training, do you think it would be better to maintain a consistent RPE across sets for an exercise and let reps fall accordingly, or conversely maintaining consistent reps across sets by starting at lower RPE and then letting it rise? For example, something maintaining RPE, strict RPE of 8, letting your reps go 10, 9, 8, 7, or something like having reps be 8, 8, 8, 8 with RPE of 6, 7, 8, 9. I think James and I are, for most people and most times, real big fans of the pure RPE auto-regulated method. It just keeps things really simple. It allows enough auto-regulation to account for daily fatigue and stuff like that. Like, just today is a 2 from fail day. Whatever reps you get is whatever reps you get. It also allows you to detect MRV much better. You can proto-detect your MRV. This is a real advanced concept, but it works. You can tell how close you are to MRV even in week 3 of a 5-week progression, being like, how hard was it to match your last week's reps? How hard was it to hit your, like, or how many reps did you get for your RPE? Like, you can feel it out. But if you have straight sets, sometimes you're like, yeah, I hit all the 8s, but it was harder than last week. Like, I don't know. Like, my performance is the same, right? So it's I think there's definitely, you can do the straight sets and reps method, but I think for anyone other than a beginner, in most cases, pure RPE is a really good way to go, or pure RIR is what we actually prefer.
Yeah, so I think that, like you said, RIR on the individual level. I think sometimes doing the straight sets and reps is good for like when you're working
with
team
and team
sports.
Because they're going to do fuck all. You don't even know what they're going to do.
Yeah, and you're managing like however many dozens of people at that point, so it's very hard to kind of micromanage every individual. So you say, hey, here's the idea, 3 by 8. Do your best. But for the
also pick their loads for them. So
right,
like, do this with 8. It's enough of a challenge.
Yeah. So for the individual level, though, you would want to use the more flexible reps.
Yeah. All right. Felipe Machado says, "What's up, docs? Considering an ideal amount of all the macronutrients and an even amount of protein per meal, would it be correct to assume that one has maximum of 6 daily meals? He's probably above his leucine threshold. And as far as he doesn't have any less than 3 meals per day, and those meals aren't very close together, the protein amount is not too above the FSR threshold. Therefore, the protein contained in it isn't wasted as energy. If that statement is correct, would it be correct to conclude that as far as one stays on the right thresholds, those meals would always provide a certain degree of anabolic and catabolic signals in higher or lower degrees, and therefore averaging out regardless of how one spreads his meals?"
I don't think we've even addressed any like dosing issues, did we? Or did I miss that? We just talked about meal frequency and assuming that he's at his leucine threshold. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so it would be correct to assume that one has a maximum of 6 meals per day. He's above leucine threshold as far. So a lot of that enters into digestion times too, Felipe. So the FSR threshold, yes, the answer to your question is yes, but you also have to answer another question of how often do you dip below the FSR threshold because your meals are too infrequent. With 3 daily feedings, unless you have a shitload of fat and carbs with those meals and maybe some good luck with slower digestion, you're going to be above the FSR threshold at the peak, but you might be below it in the trough when it's 8 hours later and you haven't eaten. So I think the 6 daily meals covers all of your bases, both anabolism and anti-catabolism. The 3 daily meals might not. They average out to something similar, but remember, above FSR threshold, going much more above it doesn't help. So when you have a lot of protein in a 3 daily meal, there's no amount of growth. There's not much of a bump in growth that's going to get you to make up the fact that you haven't eaten those other 3 meals, even if it's the same amount of protein. So yes, I would say that 4 to 6 is much more optimal than 3. All right, it says, if that statement is correct, would we conclude as far as on the right thresholds? Okay, okay. If one is an insomniac like myself and chooses to eat also during the sleeping period, one would be slightly more catabolic between the few of his meals because the gap between them is bigger. If one chooses to just sleep, he'd be very catabolic for a longer period. and not at all in the other period. Is that accurate? Oh, I see. Yeah. So however you spread your meals, if they're more evenly spread, that's better. So that being said, when you're sleeping, there is some good reason to believe that the lower nutrient flux is a good thing. So you probably should be a little fasted, especially towards the end of your sleep, and you're not likely to burn a lot of muscle during that time, and especially if you have a slower digesting protein source. There is something about high energy throughput digestion that probably interferes to some extent with the recuperative qualities of sleep. So if you eat a really big meal and then go to sleep, you might actually not get as high of a quality of sleep as if you ate a not so big meal, or that meal digested partially, or if you just wake up in the middle of the night, eat a bunch of food and go back to sleep, the sleep quality might not be the same. And the nutrient partitioning, growth hormone pulsatile release might not be the same. So Felipe, to be honest, I think there's still a downside of you eating during when you're supposed to be sleeping. Ideally, you would separate those to some extent. James?
Yeah, that's not even dipping into the actual problem of sleep, right? That's just
its own huge problem.
That's its own
100%.
huge thing.
Yeah.
I agree with what Mike said. By the way, since sleep seems to be like a regularly occurring theme in some of these questions, I highly recommend Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep. He's a neuroscientist, published a wonderful book on all of the anything sleep related. I'm doing the audiobook version. I'm well way through it now, and it's a mind fuck, man. It's really interesting. So if you guys want to learn more about some really good research,
really tells you not to miss sleep.
I mean, yeah, they beat that horse to death.
Mm-hmm. To sleep.
To sleep.
All right. For example, I usually choose to eat during the productive part of my day for hunger management, conventional meal spreading, but sometimes I feel hungry during what's supposed to be my sleeping time, and not as much during the first 3 to 4 hours after waking up. When that happens, I just eat the first meal of the following day earlier during my sleeping period. I haven't found any reason why the net balance effect would be different. Well, what we just mentioned, is there anything that I'm missing out? Maybe endogenous hormone variables like cortisol and GH? Yes. In another more extreme theoretical example, if one doesn't sleep at all and has a meal every 5 hours, is one going to have more catabolic stimuli between meals than conventional meal spreading? Yes. And if he sleeps, is he going to have way more catabolic stimuli for a longer time? Remember, sleeping is a very non-catabolic thing.
Yeah. It's catabolic in the sense like that you're not eating, but it actually has massive net regenerative anabolic
100%,
effect.
100%. But way less for the rest of the waking hours. Does it make sense to conclude that theoretically, as far as 3 to 6 meals are consumed during 24 hours a day, the net balance effect is the same? I don't think it's the same. I think 6 meals are still better, considering that those meals are not very close together, which could sum up the protein suppliance curves and part of the wasted energy. I'd asked how many grams or percentage of a total daily protein we should vector into the intra-workout meal. Oh, the different question. So yeah, hopefully our sleep question answered that. But Felipe, there's no way to make up for it. You have to sleep, and you should probably be eating less when you're sleeping. I'd asked how many grams or percentage of total daily protein we should vector into an intra-workout meal. How would you justify your answer considering the leucine threshold, FSR curves, and whatever else? I don't talk about the leucine threshold because I think it's fucking bullshit. I don't think the leucine threshold makes any goddamn sense if you look at the meal frequency literature and actual human populations. I don't think that people, when you eat mixed meals all the time, the delivery of leucine to the blood is one straight fucking line through the entire day. It's not bumps, right? So the leucine threshold is just not really conclusive, because the conclusions you draw from the leucine threshold, and especially like the refractory period, are completely antithetical to everything we know about nutrition as far as muscle gaining. So I just don't justify them in there.
Yeah, you know more about that than me, so.
And he goes, can you imagine if I had screwed up the acronym basis for the whole question again? Yes.
Oh yeah, last time.
Yesterday.
That's right.
Yeah, for sure. SFR, FSR.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. You're welcome, Felipe, and hopefully we answered some of your questions. All right, Kevin Farley says, hey, docs. Just got back from vacation in Mexico with my fiance. My pale Irish ass got burned like hell, and she didn't. But we were still able to train while down there. The resort we stayed at had a great gym where I could get almost all of my MAV training in for the week, around 4 sets per exercise with 8 to 12 reps. It's great. I could probably search back in the webinars for this question, but the webinar is tonight, so why not ask? My question relates to my programming for this week, which is week 4 in the MPT. Should I continue with week 4's one from field programming, or should this week be used for a deload? I would compare my vacation week with training week 1 or 2 in terms of volume and intensity, but I wonder if I should pick it back up where I left off, or take the deload week and start Meso 2 next week. I think you can pick it back up because you're super regenerated, and if it's a 1 or 2 type of week, I think you're totally good to go. I'm currently in day 1 of cut number 2 this year, going from 215 to 205 pounds in weeks in 12 weeks on the RP Diet app. Thanks for the answers and keep up the excellent work. If you're on day 1 of cut number 2, I would say go to day 0. Don't cut for the next week. Take the deload and start a nice 6-to-1 progression after. James?
Yeah, I think from a training perspective, I think you have a lot of flexibility there, especially since you had really great normal training. So in the sense of like, are you going to get fucked up from doing going into week 4 after coming home? I don't think so. I think it's okay. But I think in terms of practical applications, what Mike said is probably the way to go. Just easier.
Yeah, like if you're starting a cut, like
might as well just get a clean
start a cut and
yeah.
go nowhere.
It's just easier to manage at that point. So like if you want, you could just like fuck off and just do week 4 and kind of eat whatever and just have fun.
But then you have to deload in your second week of a cut. That's fucking weird, right?
It is weird.
Just deload now and then start your cut next week.
Or yeah, I would say like you could either finish out your thing, deload, and then start your cut later and like adjust the cut date, or just deload now and keep the cut date the same.
Yeah. All right, Sam Elquazen says, curious to hear how Mike will butcher my name again. Well, Sam, you cocky asshole.
Most people follow
again wrong
with the pronunciation at some point.
For sure. You spelled again wrong, so fuck you. Love you, Sam. JK, we're all pieces of shit here.
To me, it looks like Elquazen. Elquazen?
Fuck him. Fuck you, dog. You the one with the weird last name.
Yeah, don't make it my
saying.
I don't know what pronoun or last name you want to hear from me.
Friggin' they, them, there. All right. I've got a music festival coming up. Hell yeah. Which happens every couple of months. Damn, this motherfucker on the party trail. All right. And I was wondering if my approach to this isn't hurting my training too much and if I can make any chances to hurt a bit less. Obviously, not going and not occasionally using some fun drugs will be the best. Hell yeah. But because the main reason I'm in the gym 5 days a week is because I love training, so just recreational, I'm okay with the trade-off. The party is
why not?
Because the party is usually on a Saturday. I train legs on Friday and mainly chest on Saturday. Before switching to 5 days, I trained 4, added the Saturday session. I just skipped legs. Figuring my recovery will be so hampered it'll probably turn out negative, and I don't want to dance for a whole day while having sore legs. Remember, a lot of the growth mechanisms that you impart in a workout take days and weeks. Myonuclear activation and infiltration, so on and so forth. So you can still, even if you do legs and then the next day you go dancing, you're still putting some growth into motion. You could have trained anything and gone dancing and still had a somewhat catabolic effect from the dancing, but it's not all lost for sure. Right? So there's nothing wrong with it.
So I think I can kind of nip this one in the butt, and I don't want to be dismissive, but
no, please.
Here's the thing, Sam. Like if you're just recreational and this is something that you enjoy and is part of your life, who cares? It's totally fine. You can go out and do this party stuff. If you want to deload legs so your legs are fresher for dancing, who gives a fuck? Just do it. That's awesome.
Yeah, if it's every couple months, who cares? Yeah.
Honestly, it's one of these things. Like I think you have to have a good. This is actually one of the things I made a presentation for our London seminar coming up, where you just have to know what you're trying to get out of this. Like if you are trying to be, step on stage and a competitor, then you have to make a stronger consideration for not doing it. But if you never plan on competing, you just love to be in the gym, you're just like a fitness person. Like I would consider myself a fitness person, but I'm not an athlete and I'm not a competitor in any capacity. Who cares? Even if your recovery is hampered from dancing, which we don't think it is, but even if it was, so what? Like you're going to have a great time. It's going to enhance your life. Is it going to make you a less fit and healthy person? No, you're just going to pick up where you left off and keep going. It's not going to tap into your MRVs so substantially. Like it's just one of these things. Like, don't worry about it. I guess what I'm trying to say. Like, just have fun with it. Who cares? Yep.
I
hope that I didn't want it to sound like dismissive. Like I don't care what you think. I'm saying like this is like.
You actually
I was just saying, like, I think, like, don't think too hard. Like, just have fun, enjoy your life. You're obviously a fit person. You will continue to be a fit person, whether or not you go out and club or do your music thing or whatever. So it's all good.
Figuring my recovery will be so hampered, it'll probably turn out negative. Not a concern. And I don't want to dance for a whole day while having sore legs. Dude, they don't fucking train legs. Definitely deload. Logistical, not having to cram in a gym session right before the festival and recover totally. While deloading, I won't skip the Friday session, maybe in week 1. On week 2, 3, and 4, skipping technique session. My super moot point, that's on you. And how to pick up training again the next week, especially later in the meso, obviously, if I only feel recovered. Slowly and gradually, okay? So just start at close, just go back to what it was before. Like, don't just assume it never happened. Just ease into the sets.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, if I don't feel recovered after the huge treating training as a deload and getting back into it, start a new meso. Starting a new meso is good, but what I would do is take the next couple of training days after the music festival as recovery days / MV days, just lower volume. And once you get your swag going, nutrition-wise, I take a kilogram of quark or a huge omelet for breakfast, a burger and some sugary sodas at the party, and some whey casein for the after party. Dude, yeah. I will try to sneak some protein bars, but I doubt they will let me enter with those.
Well, if you put them in your prison wallet, you're good.
After parties, the casein I got. Uncover them so they can digest into your asshole and make you jack that way. Dude, yeah, you're doing more than enough, dude. Yeah, as long as one of these parties is only every couple months, then you're good to go. If it's every weekend, yeah, some trade-offs, but I think you're fucking cool. All right.
One thing that I do on a similar note here, I do a lot of hiking, and hiking like really fucks me up, and I know it's going to fuck me up for a couple days. So if like I would say there's a parallel here to like the dancing. One thing I'll do is I'll just after like I hike, I'll just take my upper body days, even if they're out of order. So if I had legs coming up, I'll just push it back a few days and do like my bench or my back workout and take a rest day, and then usually by then I'm good enough to do my legs again. No big deal. Just a little wash.
Yeah, good thinking. Real good thinking. All right. Mircea Balaj says, hi, docs. Regarding butt wink, I know that Dr. Mike starts to squat in a lordotic position, has a neutral spine in the bottom position. Although this is not rounding of the low back, aka butt wink, true. Experts such as Dr. Stuart McGill say that any movement of the spine, especially when under load, can compromise its safety. I would debate that. From an anatomical perspective, can you clarify why the lordotic to neutral movement would not be deleterious to the spine? Because neither one of them is deleterious, and nothing in between is deleterious. They're not in a compromised mechanical position at all.
And I mean, if you take that position, then you can just forget about walking.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
all spinal movement is deleterious to the spine. Let's put that out there first of all.
Yeah.
So, I mean, could you make an argument that like heavy squatting is bad for your back? Yeah, sure. You can also make an argument that it's good for your back. It goes both ways. So it's the same idea. Like the people who subscribe to the notion of, which is actually, I think, at least partially true, that people have like a finite number of heartbeats. And they say, well, you shouldn't exercise because that just eats up your number of heartbeats. Well, guess what? Exercise lowers your resting heart rate. So
you shouldn't fuck either.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things, like people are very quick to point out all of the bad things that come from exercise. But the thing is, like, yeah, exercise is stressful. Doing heavy squats, regardless of your posture, puts stress on the spine. That stress ends up making it stronger in the long term. The neutral spine position and the lordotic spine position, very, very hard to go wrong. What we do know is the posterior pelvic tilt position, the poop dog, is bad. We know that's bad for sure. The other ones we can't say are bad.
Yep, 100%. 100%. All right. He says, can't wait to see you cunts in London. Woohoo. Yeah, hell yeah. We will see you there.
It'll be very, very shortly. I was just checking on my flight a second ago, too.
Oh, there you go. Martin Kumaru says, hey, docs, I asked about taking multivitamins versus actually eating fruits and vegetables last week, and your response was, eat your fucking vegetables. My question was more meant in the way of, can I pretty much eat whatever fruits and vegetables I want and cover everything else with a multivitamin mineral? Instead of having to eat one serving of 7 different kinds of fruit and veggies a day, can I eat 7 total servings of 3 different kinds? Yes. Fuck yes, of course. Nobody actually eats 7 different kinds. They're fucking liars or hippies. Sometimes I just want a lot of peaches, strawberries, or cucumber or whatever. I don't feel like eating or having 6 other things. Dude, fuck no. No. Who the fuck told you that? Fuck that. Well,
like there's something to be said for a little bit of diversity in your diet, but other than that, I mean, if you want to just eat like cucumbers and fruit, or whatever fruit of choice, like no one's going to fault you for that. That's totally fine.
Oh, for sure. Number 2, this might sound like a stupid question, but I am not well versed in biology. I've been told that due to increased demand for blood flow, when you lift weights, your body will slowly start making more veins and some muscles. Yes. So it can deliver more blood flow to muscle activation. It's not veins, it's capillaries. I know that being vascular is a mix of being lean and having more muscle, but I'm wondering if I'm seeing veins at a certain weight that I've not seen before. Shoulder veins when I curl, for example, that can only be due to being leaner at the same weight, or can possibly due to my body having made more veins. So your body doesn't actually make veins or arteries, but it makes capillary structure. So all the major veins that you have forever, and you'll never have any more of them, as far as I'm aware. But you'll have more capillaries, so it's not actually a visual difference that you. So it is actually from muscles getting bigger and from the vein.
Mike, I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm getting like a lot of crazy feedback, so I'm trying to lower the bandwidth here to see if I can fix it.
Can you hear me?
Now I can. It was kind of coming in and out for a little bit, and then just recently it really was cutting out hard for like the last 2 minutes. So I'm just
weird. It's also zoomed in on your face a lot.
I'm cutting the bandwidth down, so it probably shrunk the screen size and took it out of HD. So I'm just hoping that I don't know if the viewers are having that same problem or if it's just on my end, but yeah, I missed that last section, and I'm just cutting the bandwidth down a little to get us back on track.
Let me answer that. Are you good now?
I think so.
Okay. You said workout shakes do not do when you are on a cut 1,000 calorie deficit. Would carbs before, during, and after the workout not help you have more glycogen for the workout? Not glycogen, but energy for the nervous system from carbs. Yes. 16 days into my cut and I'm looking flat as fuck, so definitely do not have a ton of glycogen. I drank 200 milliliters of orange juice before my upper workout and I had more energy than usual. Where did I get tired 2/3 of the workout, which I normally do? Not sure if the orange juice helped, but it was just more well rested than usual. The orange juice definitely helped. Workout window nutrition helps a lot when you were in a deficit, and not a lot when you're in surplus. Number 5, I know people do fasted cardio because they think they burn more calories. I was wondering about doing cardio not fasted, but only after consuming fat and protein in an effort to conserve carbohydrates when in a deficit. Not a terrible idea. So for example, having no carbs for the first hours of the day, do some cardio, then have meals with some carbs in them. I was thinking that this would allow one to save carbs for the hours before training. If one could have a better training sessions and increase performance, what do you think? I think that's a very fine idea. It's going to be a tiny difference, but it is nonetheless going to be a good difference. A more extreme example would be if you ate all of your carbs before cardio and pissed them all away doing cardio, versus if you ate most of your carbs around your weight training. That's definitely better. So yeah, what people say, like, oh, it doesn't matter fasted or fed state cardio, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really, but I would say that if you're eating a shitload just to have great cardio performance on for bodybuilding purposes, why don't you just get the calories you need on the minimal amount of food so you can save your food for when it fights hunger better and powers your actual training better. So it's not the fasted cardio that's good, it's the fact that you're not pissing away your food on the cardio that's good.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea in theory, but I think in practical application, it's going to be, I can't imagine it making a difference. So that's a skeptical answer. I honestly, even if we did it like in a laboratory, I think we're talking about like the difference between like a few grams versus not. So I don't know. It makes sense on paper, but I don't think in application it will have the effect that you might want. But either way, better than fasted cardio for sure.
Yeah. Number 6, my gym is holding a deadlift competition on the 25th of May for charity, not huge stakes. Entry fee is £5 when they have some okay prizes. So thinking of entering this, it would be very end of my 5-week hypertrophy training meso. Before I go into my deal, literally on the 7th day of my 5th week, which is supposed to be my rest day. Now I was thinking that while my performance would obviously be worse, since this is the very end of the meso, was there anything bad recovery-wise to doing it? No. If you do a deload after, I think it's fine. Since I'll have full deal the week after anyway, I've always been the fat kid while growing up, so I thought it would be cool to win an athletic competition. And since it's only £5 to enter, it's not like the stakes are high. Say I would enter this competition. There are 3 different weight classes I think I would be able to compete in. Under 83, under 93, and under 103. The reason for this being that I'm currently 88.5. And with how big my deficit is going, I'll probably be 86.5 or so when the competition rolls around. Now, before you obviously go for the lowest weight class, you fucking dumbass. This is a very unknown competition.
That's not what we would have said anyway.
That's not what we said. I can guarantee you that James was going to say compete in the under 93, and so was I. So this is a very unknown competition, as they're not even advertising for it in the gym, at least yet. I only found out because a member told me, and they only posted on their own Facebook page about it. It's a franchise gym, so they have a little local page just for them. The average post gets between 0 and 15 likes, and when announcing competition is
That's like my
14
Facebook.
comments. Yeah, there you go. And I was not aware they even had their own Facebook page until a week ago. So what I'm trying to say is that they probably wouldn't be that many people entering, which means that one good under 83 lifter could actually make under 93 and under 103 more viable. Because there might be worse lifters in those categories. Doesn't matter. The strongest guy I've seen deadlifting in the gym was doing 190K. Looked like he was 75 to 80K. Second strongest doing 185K and closer to 100 to 105K. My 3RM is 175, which is I think around 195 or so 1RM. Maybe 185 to 190 due to fatigue. So I was wondering what you think I should do. Should I try to aim for cut 3-4 kilograms of water? No. For the competition, it looks like I would do better under 93 or just drink some water and eat some food. Or stay normal so I compete at under 93 and then drink a couple of liters of water and eat some food if I want to get to 94 to compete in the under 103. Dude, just go in whatever you weigh that.
Yeah.
It's going to be under 93. Just do under 93 and do your best.
Did he say whether or not this was his first competition? Did I miss
I don't
that?
think he's ever done a competition before.
Dude, just show up. Just show up. Who cares? Who cares? I mean, like, I appreciate the competitive spirit where you wanna enter to something that you can do well and potentially win. I get that. Don't get me wrong. But it's your first one. If it's your first one or you're in the middle of a fucking cut, who cares? Just show up, do the meet, have a great time. I mean, if it's like, okay, this is the prize money I need to feed my family, like, okay, I get that. Fine, maybe try and get to 83. But if it's not that, just have fun.
Yep. Says, lastly, do you have any tips for heightened performance on the day? I assume some dextrose would be good since I would be very carb depleted. Dextrose is not a good idea. What you need to do is the night before the deadlift competition, you need to have a nice, big, carb-laden, tasty, delicious meal of waffles or something like that with some eggs or some shit. And then the morning of, like nice and early, 3 to 4 hours before the competition, you need to have another one of those nice big meals. And then you need to stay hydrated, show up to the meet, and do really well. That's it.
That's it.
All right, to the live questions. Daniel Jelly says, from a couple of weeks back, I think I remember you both poo-pooed landmine presses. What's wrong with them? Nothing wrong with them. They're just needlessly quirky, and it's someone trying to do fancier shit than they need to. But
that's my
nothing
position
wrong
too.
with them.
I can't like put together a comprehensive pros and cons on it. I just don't think that it's worth your time. So again, it's not that it's not worth your time in the sense like, could it be an effective lift? Sure. But I think it's just chasing novelty for novelty's sake when there's tried and true things that you can do right now that don't do that. So
yeah. All right. Kyle Perdomo here on Mariana's account says, Kyle here, Mariana left me alone with you guys. Cap's ending was awesome, James. It completed his arc just like Tony Stark's ending did for him. Stark finally learned to be selfless.
But it did make sense.
And Cap finally learned it was okay to be selfish. Loved it. Yeah, there's something to that. But the time travel stuff made not so much sense,
he never came back. So whatever timeline he was in was a fundamentally altered timeline. You can't just show up in the one that he was in before. Also, how did he get there? Did he fucking teleport and then nobody noticed him walking up there?
Yeah.
Nerdy James is getting mad.
When you rip open your space-time continuum.
I liked it because they definitely they hit a bunch of the inside, not jokes, but inside like Cap finally got the last dance, right? That's what he was saying before he went into the ice. And they paid homage to those little bitty, tidbits in the movies. I like that. It was too much to let slide. I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
all right. Next up. Sorry, Kyle's still here. I'm feeling a cognitive dissonance after an answer you gave to an earlier question regarding how you spread the weekly volume via frequency. If I'm keeping up, it seems like you suggested there's an advantage to spreading volume evenly rather than having a high volume day and a low volume day. Are you saying not evenly, above MEV? Above MEV. And if you dip below MEV for hypertrophy, there's questionable what you're doing. Are you saying 2 moderate volumes days will be better? I'm currently using an 8-day microcycle that I train each muscle group 3 times. My current training split is set up so that each muscle group is a high, moderate, and low volume day. All of those have to be above MEV for them to be good hypertrophy training, by the way. My current training is set up so each muscle group is a high volume, high, moderate, low volume day. I did this partly because of what I observed on the male physique template. For instance, the male physique template has a day 3 chest exercises and 2 other days with only a single chest exercise. Please help me understand the difference between balancing the volume over the course of the microcycle versus targeting muscle group with a lot of volume on one workout, followed by subsequent lower volume workouts. So the way we do the MPT is not something that you should copy outright. It's important to understand the principles because there's many good ways of training and that check the boxes for the principles, but it's not something specific that they're doing that means that you have to do that specifically all the time. Can you do higher volume or lower volume days? Yes. But should they all be above session MEV? Yes. So make sure that and it's very simple. Make sure your low volume day still gets you a pump and still gets you low messed up. That's it. And instead of doing a high, moderate, and low volume day, I would just say have a lower volume day and a higher volume day for both, for whatever body part, and or 2 high days and 1 lower volume day, but ultra rep ranges. And the rep range alteration is something that is not done in the male physique template because the male physique template was not designed at a state of sufficient understanding to do that. So it's actually behind the times.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. That's good.
All right. Ansuman Ramakrishnan. James, I didn't tell you this. I met and trained with Ansuman Ramakrishnan when he was in Philadelphia.
Recently?
Yes, like last weekend.
Fucking that's why you were ill. I get it now.
Yeah. I was exposed to Ansuman radiation and I barely survived. Ansuman Ramakrishnan says, "Hi, docs. Hope you're both doing well. And once again, it was awesome to meet you, Dr. Mike. Hope I get the chance to meet Dr. James someday as well. It's unlikely. He hates you."
What?
I'm just trying to get you killed.
Right.
I'm starting to wrap up my 16-week mass and going to cap it with a 4-week meso focused on the 20 to 30 rep range and tossing in a few metabolite techniques. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Would you suggest no more than 1 muscle trained metabolite style per workout, or would it be possible to train a few muscles like that per session? I would say no more than 2. What do you think, James?
I think that's a good, like more than 2, like, I'm sorry, at the point of 2, you're going to be exhausted.
Yeah.
Even if it's like a non-synergistic muscle, like if you did like pecs and tries, both hit some metabolite stuff, your arms are still going to be tired. Like you're not going to get much more out of anything else.
100%. Furthermore, which metabolite techniques would be best suited for training in the 20 to 30 rep range? I imagine giant sets, myo reps would be extremely easy to integrate there. Supersets are also great. And really just short rest. High rep sets. Yeah. Yep. After the completion of this meso and after a short mini cut, I'm planning on redesigning my program to follow the heavy, moderate, light day style programming. Sweet. Hitting everything but biceps, delts. Those will still get hit 4 times a week. He's going to hit this 3 times a week. I'm also going to preferentially focus on the training of each body part of the rep range that seems to respond best, something that I think I should have figured out after the completion of my current mass. How would you suggest incorporating this into heavy, moderate, light structure, since you suggested previously that it might be a good idea to keep each day focused entirely on 1 rep range? But if 1 range is meant to be targeted preferentially, that would lead to an asymmetric volume distribution across the week, which there's nothing wrong with, by the way. So some of your days are going to be bigger. Concretely, I seem to have found that my chest responds well the 5 to 10 rep range. If I want to have 50% of my volume focused on that rep range, would I train chest a ton on the heavy day and only a bit on the other 2 days? Yes. Or you would do 2 heavy days and 1 lighter day for chest. That's another way to do it. Okay. So, for example, you could have a heavy, moderate day. Day 1, heavy for chest. Day 2, heavy and moderate for chest. Day 3, moderate and light for chest. So you train heavy twice.
Mm-hmm.
It works, right?
Yeah.
You would just train different exercises. If I wanted, train chest. Would it be better in this case to have 2 heavy days in a week? Oh, look, he predicted that, and 1 with both moderate and light work. Ansuman, 1 step ahead.
Beat you to it.
But with another, it's unbelievable. It's like we teach principles here at RP. What would another solution be to evenly distribute the volume across the rep ranges days at the beginning of the meso, but preferentially add volume to the heavy day? You would also do that. You would add more volume to the heavy set. So, for example, in your heavy, moderate, light split, as you increased volume over the weeks, you would add more to the heavy days. Like the heavy days would start at 3 sets and work up to 6. The other days would start at 2 sets and work up to 4, maybe. So at the end of the mesocycle, you're just doing a lot of heavy work and not a lot of everything else.
Oof, man, he's on top of this shit.
Very much on top. And then Kayvon Hamidazadeh says, "Hey docs, do you ever inflate your starting RIR for some muscle groups? For instance, I really feel like I could start at 1 or 2 RIR in week 1 and be completely fine. Start traps at 1 or 2 RIR and completely fine. Totally. You could also just add more sets over the weeks for traps or increase weight more. So is it okay to increase RIR to start with? Yes, but there are probably at least as good, if not better, of ways by taking longer progressions, more volumes, or bigger intensity jumps."
Yeah, totally agree. And yeah, sometimes I do that too. Like, sometimes I'll have some muscle groups like chest start at 4, and then I might do buys at like 2 to 3, something
Totally.
like that. But
Just remember there's other ways of adding volume as well.
absolutely. Man, is that it? Fuck.
That's
man.
it.
There was a lot. I'm just
Big work
refreshing
day.
one more time.
2 hours.
Lord. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up. So, okay, folks. For next week, we're gonna be on a modified schedule again, right? Or no?
No,
No, I get back Monday.
We're back.
What day do you get back?
Monday.
Oh, all right. Well, maybe not.
We're golden. Next week, same thing.
We're golden. Okay, so we'll plan on same bat time, same bat channel.
Yep.
Man, we got some really good questions this week. Thank you guys for sending in your questions. They're always really excellent. They've only been getting
Awesome
better
stuff.
over time. Awesome stuff. Talk to you guys very soon. If you're in London this weekend, come hang out with us and Steve Hall and all those guys. It'll be awesome.
Yep. Peace, homies.
Later.